Recording in progress.
Good morning, everybody. I just wanted to really give a shout out to all of the agencies that helped with the 545 Work Street relocation and continue to help through today. The City of Salinas, incredible team. Greg Baker, real huge shout out to Greg Baker for coming in and helping with that. Housing Authority, of course, if you guys did not know, Housing Authority stepped in so that they can give vouchers to all of the individuals who are being evicted. I don't want to use the word evicted. Displaced, I suppose, is a better term for that. Of course, I'm sorry if I missed anybody. Cecil helped. Jill Allen's team helped. It was really like an all hands on deck situation, and I see Keishla is on the call, so Keishla has been really in it and making sure that everybody is connected. So thank you to the coalition for really leaning in to help these very vulnerable people.
And Roxanne, I think it's a great example of what we're going to spend our time on today, which is our encampment sweep solution set.
Nice.
Of course, they were displaced not because of a sweep, but they were displaced, and the response of the agency and how agencies collectively and how they've come together, I think has been a tremendous example of what's possible here. And I was in a meeting yesterday with various entities, and in that meeting we got accomplished things that would have taken 2-3 weeks normally. And it just shows you what can happen. And Roxanne, you started the whole thing, and kudos to you for that. And really have done a great job of bringing everyone together. So and I can't even mention everyone, and I won't even try, but yeah, everyone's a hero here.
Well, there's so many projects that are going on here at the coalition. One of the things that immediately jumps out to me is that we are moving towards our COC Build grant. We had three organizations initially interested in the program or applying for this national competition, and all but one decided to fall back. And VTC, Kurt Shawty's group, will be moving towards the national competition. So congratulations to Kurt on those efforts. So CHSP and Focus Strategies will be working closely with them, a really competitive application to go nationally.
Thanks, Greg. I just wanted to make a comment that the next time our continuum of care gets into a fix, like, the disaster that became Home Key, which nobody saw coming, obviously. But since we have the ability to get together and solve problems and do it quickly, I think many of the organizations in the coalition have really gained a lot of strength in the last couple of years. Let's together and start doing solutions earlier in the game. It's really behooves everybody in the jurisdictions and in the organizations that make up the coalition to hear about the problem as soon as it sets in, to start assembling, to start getting the solutions happening sooner rather than later. So I'm just going to put in the bid for that. And number two, I really like the way the agenda is organized today. I'm sorry, I'm kind of an administrative geek, but page numbers and everything, it's really pretty cool, and I liked it a lot. It's very helpful in trying to do those things. Thank you.
We have moved our annual summit, Leaving Home Summit, to April of 2025. We're partnering with the County of Monterey and Monterey County Office of Education this year for a really great program for you all. So save the date. We'll be going out. I included it in our board packet. So, go ahead and mark your calendars. We'll have registration link out soon.
So can we put up the Encampment Sweep Solution Set document, please? There are triggering events that cause homeless people to be displaced. And in this case, we're targeting the triggers that are the encampment sweeps, because those are that is basically designed to, well, activate the network of agencies and government organizations, so that we're all aware and in a state of readiness to do our part, each of us in this whole end-to-end process. So as you'll see, it does, and you haven't found that document yet, it does starts with, of course, the outreach effort in response to the trigger. It actually starts with notice and communication, letting everyone know, hey, this is about to happen, let's get ready. And then we go to the outreach activities, and followed by getting people into some kind of soft landing shelter, which could be a few different things. Could be an emergency shelter, a temporary shelter, and ultimately goes into permanent housing. So what we're going to do, I don't know if you had a chance to look at your packet today, is we're going to break into 5 groups. And the 5 groups are: breakout group number 1 is called Advance Notice and Communication. And this is about how do we notify the agencies that could or should be involved. How do we communicate with each other throughout this process? And for each one of these breakout groups, we have 5 or 6 questions that we have posed, and would like the breakout groups to brainstorm the answers to those questions. And then we'll come back and debrief at the end of today's meeting. So the first breakout group is going to be facilitated by Katrina. So she's going to do advanced notice and communication. Breakout group number 2 will be Jocelyn, and this will be the outreach response group. Pretty much what it sounds like. Breakout group 3, shelter availability quote system. How do we know when people are displaced, what kind of availability, bed availability, for example, we have in our various emergency and temporary shelters? So we need a way of knowing and communicating that. And Nicole will be facilitating that group. Breakout group 4 is the emergency and temporary shelter response. And this, of course, are the shelters and what they need to do to be prepared and take people in as they can and as beds are available. I'll facilitate that one. And then breakout group number 5, permanent supportive housing response, which is what it sounds like, getting people into the more permanent housing as possible, and that will be facilitated by Judy. So those are the 5 groups, and we're going to randomly break us up into those groups, so there's no particular science behind that. We're going to go through and take about 35 minutes, something like that, and then I think we'll come back. And we're going to have the capability in the breakout rooms to display the document for everyone to see while we're brainstorming, right? So while the facilitators are capturing the comments right there on the document. That's our plan.
All participants have returned.
Let's go through a quick debrief of the 5 groups, and we'll start from the top with Katrina. How'd yours go?
Our session went really great. We had some county and city and outreach service providers in it, so it was a well-rounded group. We talked about the advanced notice and communications, and one of the major things in that was really building a good working relationship and partnership with our private folks, and getting to know each and every one of our city folks as well. So I know as a new executive director, that is something I need to do, because a lot of things are happening through word of mouth, through our outreach teams, and then it gets to the bigger group slower than we'd like. And really working with them as well to see if they have any schedules cleanups coming down the line. And if they have scheduled things, like let us know. Here's our calendar of cleanups over the next month or next quarter. But we also know that it's not always like that. That sometimes it takes some time before an encampment is identified and deemed or classified as a certain caliber that would trigger. So really getting to know what maybe constitutes a sweep from the cities or private folks, and building that one-on-one connection with them so that that information gets through the coalition to outreach teams in a timely manner, and making sure that our outreach teams, like most, but making sure all of our outreach teams, once they are notified that they're visiting these encampments on a daily basis, maybe it's a rotating schedule for them up until the sweep, so that they know that.
We're going to have to wrap it here.
Go ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Sounds like a great group.
Our group went great. We handled our outreach questions. We had some really great conversations. Sophie had some great suggestions that I've left in bold in the notes, mainly it being, can we do something when a sweep happens to increase somebody's CAR score, so that to let, they've been impacted by a sweep and so therefore their score is a little bit higher. That got a lot of thumbs up and nods in the room, so that is included in there. We talked a fair bit about barriers to fulfilling services, and I think lack of notice for when sweeps are going to occur was the big one. Lots of emphasis on building trust-based relationships and how to do so. Some really good tips and tricks. So lots of notes that we'll share around with the group after.
It was great. So we talked about the system of shelter availability and definitely the need for a database. And is it something that we can partner with local colleges about? Is it something we can partner with the United Way? And making sure that whatever it is, it's easily accessible on a mobile device as well, so that outreach teams can actually access it, look at it in a mobile format. And then when it comes to a reservation, whether or not people have outreach teams can reserve spots that are open within shelters. It's how do you prioritize those folks? How can we include a priority system, as well as the inclusion of consideration for special populations that programs can serve, and making sure that it's an equitable process that we go through. And then what role do rapid rehousing providers play, and what can they play when you come across a family that is not chronically homeless, especially if they have a voucher? How quickly can we get them into those programs? And then just in general, just our lack of housing pipeline also kind of being a problem. And it's already hard to move people through our continuum. So how long do folks get to stay in shelters, especially since the majority of ours are long-term stay shelters? And still not wanting it to be a revolving door where you get to stay indoors for 48 hours and then have to go back up onto the tree. So those were some of the things we talked about, and I am very excited to work on a database with the coalition.
All right, and I had group 4, the temporary and emergency shelter group. We had a kind of a general question in there that kind of cuts across groups, really. But have you noticed any differences since Governor Newsom's directive, any increase in activity, anything like that? And it was interesting to me that in general, at least the people we had in the group hadn't seen a whole lot of change yet. And that just may be a lag effect, I'm not sure. I know we've seen a slight uptick in occupancy in our shelters, but it's hard to tell. Is that because the weather's getting colder, or is that because of sweeps? I don't know. But chances are, whatever it is today, it's going to get worse tomorrow. So, in general, we talked about the services that need to be provided in shelters. One of the big ones that really came through loud and clear are the mental health assessment. That's such a common need, and people are having to wait so long for help in that area. So that's big on the radar screen. So I'll stop there, but it was a good group. And then we'll finish up with Judy. How'd your group go?
Great. So we discussed permanent support housing response, and one of our discussion was the referral process and how can we make that process run smoother and faster, and how can we get consumers into permanent housing in a faster way. So a lot of our discussion was that the relation between providers is crucial. So, the communication between all of us and that process and the referral process should be very accurate. So the information that is passed on to from one provider to another provider should be very accurate. And this information that is given to us will then facilitate the transitioning process, right, to being homeless to a permanent housing situation. Another discussion that we had was, one of the questions was that how do we ensure that the units there being placed are accessible units, right? So one of the things that we need to do as providers is make sure that the units that we are providing to consumers are accessible, and have that really build that relationship with the consumers to ensure that we know what their needs are. So not just ourselves coming up with what their needs are, or let the consumer tell us what they are needing, and making sure that those units are then accessible to them, either by having accessible showers, having enough steps, and if they're not, making sure that we know where to get those assistive technology devices to make sure that those units are accessible. And one of the last questions were, how do we ensure that they stay in permanent housing? And again, it's building those relationships with consumers, make sure that we do our check-ins with them, make sure that we are available and provide case management.
I put it inside of the chat, but I don't know if everyone saw. The county is I am pushing proposed encampment policies and procedures. We're going to start off going to the homelessness committee to get feedback. The homelessness committee is chaired by Supervisor Alejo, and it's co-chaired by Supervisor Askew. A lot of the things that were discussed today, we are currently trying to navigate, work on, establish the infrastructure. So I appreciate this very timely conversation, Greg and Katrina. I do invite you guys to come. I've already invited Tim on the side. I would love feedback. You do understand that we have to navigate a lot when we make policies here on the county side, but we're doing everything I think that we can to try to meet people where they are and to create escalated tiers. I don't think that, of course the board still has to approve it, but I don't think that any of us, including the supervisors, want to just start off with a sweep every time. So I really, really ask that the service providers show up and talk about, from your perspective, what we can do better